Yo, what's the deal? It's your boy Xiibyte, and today I'm going to basically break down the Dragonic Resurrection deck that I use in all my campaign battles. Now, this deck is literally phenomenal and legit, and I also went on and made an iteration for it that's available for multiplayer because, as you can see, this deck basically has limited cards in it. But I'm going to go on and break down this recipe real quick, and then in the next video, I'm going to show you some gameplay on how this deck gets down, you know? So most of my battles pretty much only last maybe about 10 turns, maybe all the way up until like 21, given the way the battle goes. But this deck is really phenomenal, and I'm gonna break it down for you. First, we're gonna start with the spell cards. I have 40 cards in my deck. I have 6 normal monsters, 11 effects, 3 synchro monsters, 3 XYZs. I have 18 spell cards, 5 trap cards. So here we go. First one, of course, is Ancient Rules. Now, this deck is a dragon deck, so it's pretty much in my best interest to have Ancient Rules in my deck. Pretty much, I have the Blue Eyes White Dragon, which is basically my normal monster that is level 5 or higher. So if I have it in my hand, it will allow me to play it without tributing any monster, so that's good. These 2 cards, which is Dark Hole, I went on and added this into my deck, pretty much because Dark Hole would technically take away all the monsters that are on the field at one particular time, and that includes my monsters as well. But the reason why this works out for me is because I have a card in my deck which is called Call of the Haunted, and I'll get to that in just a second. Next, we got Dragon Shrine. Now, the reason why I want to have this in my deck is because most of the monsters that are in my deck are level 6 and higher. So if I have Dragon Shrine, I can basically take 2 normal monsters if I want to and add them into my graveyard, or I can have 1 normal monster and finish it with an effect. But the first monster has to be a normal monster if you want to draw 2. So in essence, I can go on and take my Blue Eyes White Dragon, send it to the graveyard, go on and put maybe my Prime Material Dragon or my Tyrant Dragon into the graveyard and use Call of the Haunted to pull those back out. Next is going to be Dragonic Tactics. This basically allows me to tribute 2 dragon monsters and summon 1 level 8 dragon type monster from my deck. Now, at first I was confused on this card because I was like, well, if I already have the Blue Eyes White Dragon in my hand, wouldn't I just summon my 2 monsters? But this essentially allows you to draw it from your deck. So if this card never comes up, Dragonic Tactics will be the card that I would use to get my Blue Eyes on the field. Of course, I want to have 2 fissures, basically take out the enemy's front lines. Even if it's a defense monster, I can go on and use these cards, take it off the field, and attack the opponent directly. With this particular deck, since it's campaign, I went on and added Graceful Charity, which allows me to draw 3 cards and then discard 2 cards. The reason why I want to have this in my deck is because this would allow me to get all the cards that I need in my hand, quick, fast, and in a hurry, without having to worry about another draw turn. So I went on and had 2 of those. Monster Reborn basically comes in handy. Monster Reborn basically comes in handy if I ever wanted to go on and just summon the opponent's monster if I wanted to do that. If I took away his Blue Eyes White Dragon and I wanted to add it on my side of the field, I can do that. Or even if I just wanted to bring back a card that he just destroyed, I can use this card for that. We all know that. Pot of Greed is a limited card. It really sucks that it is, because I wish I can use it on multiplayer, but I do have an alternative for that. But Pot of Greed just basically allows me to draw 2 cards without having to discard 2, which is what you do with Graceful Charity. I went on and got Raigeki, which basically destroys all the monsters on the opponent's field. So if I have my strong monsters on the field, I can use this card and completely obliterate his front lines and use my particular monsters to secure the win. Next is going to be the Rare Gold Armor. Reason why I added this is because as long as this card is equipped to a monster, the opponent can only attack that monster. So if I equip this to my Blue Eyes, or if I equip this to my Tyrant Dragon, that's the only monster that this particular opponent can attack, and that gives me enough time to maybe develop a synchro or get a card that can just get me out of a bind in case you do have a card later on that can destroy that high attacking monster. Silver Scribe, basically it is once per turn, but it is once you use it, it's done, so it can stay on the field until you use it. This will basically allow you to summon any dragon monster in your graveyard, but it has to be a normal monster. And as you can see on the picture, it is the Blue Eyes White Dragon, which is why I would go hand in hand with my Blue Eyes White Dragon collection. So that definitely comes in handy. Next, I have Swords of Revealing Light. I went on and had 2 of those. You know, you never know when you're gonna need some Swords of Revealing Light to go on and let you have 3 turns to be exact, to get a play going. Now, Fountain in the Sky, this is basically when any light monster is destroyed, you can banish that monster, so you can't draw it back from the graveyard, but you can banish it, and the attack that it had, you can get that added onto your life points. So if I have 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons, which I do, if he destroys one and this card is on the field, I can go on and banish that one because I have another one in the hole. I can banish that one, and then I can use that 300, or should I say 3,000 life points, and go on and add it to my life points. Call it a Haunted, we already talked about this. This basically allows me to bring back any card that was in my graveyard to the field. So this will come in handy when you have cards that are flip effect cards, like Man-Eater Bug, which is one of my babies, or Blastsphere, stuff like that. This will basically allow you to bring the same card back on the next turn. I prefer to use this card when the opponent is about to declare an attack, so that way you can bring him onto the field without him knowing your strategy between the standby, draw, and main phase 1. Next is Magic Cylinder. Of course, man, this is just invaluable to have this, especially when you want to save your monsters, or if you have enough life points to spare it. Basically, if the opponent was to attack with Blue Eyes White Dragon or anything like that, you can use this Magic Cylinder to take that attack, take the damage from it, but you also reverse it to the opponent as well. So this can be a make or break, game changer, especially if that one attack would wipe you out or would wipe him out. You can just use that and it will inflict direct battle damage to your opponent's life points. Mirror Force, man, it goes without saying that if you're going to play online, you need to have these particular cards in your hand, especially in campaign. But Mirror Force allows you to basically destroy all attack position monsters on the field when your opponent declares an attack. So this card is really invaluable, and it goes without saying that to defend against this, it's best to go in thinking that your opponent has a Mirror Force on the field and just only have, you got a nickel and dime. Just attack once if you have to. Just make sure that you can protect your other high-ranking monster by placing them in a defense mode before you make your attack. You don't want to lose all your monsters on the field, but if you do, that's why you have Call It a Haunted, and if it's going to be in campaign, that's why you have Monster Reborn. Moving forward, man, the Blue Eyes White Dragon. I have 3 of these Blue Eyes White Dragons, and I also have the ultimate Blue Eyes White Dragon ritual, or should I say fusion, but I don't have it. I don't use it at all on any of my decks just yet, but I basically have these, man, because like I said, with the whole strategy that I have with the Dragons deck, it goes without saying that it's basically in your best interest to have a Blue Eyes White Dragon. Flamvell Guard, these 2 are dragon cards, but I went on and had these because they're tuner monsters. So if I have one of these on the field and I have 2 of these, I can summon cards from my extra deck, which will basically be the Azure Blue Eyes White Dragon, or should I say Silver Dragon. Next is going to be the Dragon Dwelling in the Cave. This one is a 4-star monster, and it goes without saying that this is one of my babies. This, along with the Golem Dragon, are one of the dragons that I started in my Dragons and Nightmares deck, and it's invaluable, man. The defense is 2,000, so it can definitely save you in a bind, especially if you need to play this as your first card or your first or second card. This will save you another turn to get something started. Now, the Decoy Dragon, what I've learned, and I almost took this dragon out of my deck, but what I learned is that this card needs to be in attack mode. It can't be face down. It can't be flipped summoned for this to work. It has to be in attack mode, or it has to be face up. Then what happens is that basically if you use Dragon Shrine and you already sent one of these Blue Eyes White Dragons to your graveyard, you can go on and play this Decoy Dragon, get it taken out, and it will switch from this target directly to this Blue Eyes. Now, you want to be mindful of what the opponent is attacking with, because if it's attacking with anything that's higher than this, chances are, it's going to be a bust. But at least this attack position monster, you won't take, that only has an attack of 300, you won't take as much of a big hit as if it would have been in a monster like this. So I have 2 of those because I have 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons. As well as it can work with any other of my cards, like Tyrant Dragon and stuff like that. So Golem Dragon is basically the exact same thing as the Flamvell Guard. The only difference is that when this card is on the field, your opponent cannot attack any other face-up dragons besides this one. So that comes in handy especially when you're trying to develop a play or waiting for like a special card to come out. This will definitely help you for sure. Moving forward, man, you got the Prime Material Dragon, and this is my secondary baby, second hand to the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. But this Prime Material Dragon basically, and I'll just read it word for word, any effect that would inflict damage to a player increases their life points by the same amount instead. During either player's turn, when a card or effect that is activated that will destroy monsters on the field, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy it. So this goes without saying that if you're going to play online, if you have this on the field, Mirror Force does not affect you as long as you have cards in your hand that you can discard and negate this. So I have two of these on the field, and the attack points on them is pretty low, but like I said, it destroys cards, and that's all that matters. It levels the playing field, and you can always get this card back using any of the cards that was listed above. Moving forward, you got the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, and this card is my baby. If you have any dragon monster on the field, you can use this card to summon any other dragons that you have either in your hand or in your graveyard. So the benefits of this is that, or one of the negatives is that whatever card that you use, like if you use this Blue Eyes to summon this, you banish that Blue Eyes. You can't bring it back unless you have a card that you can use to bring it back, which I believe is like Dragon Reincarnation. But this card is really invaluable because as long as you have these dragons in your card, you can play this, or should I say in your graveyard, you can play this card, and then you can, in the same turn, bring one of these monsters back. So now you special summon this one, you can bring another monster back with an effect, and you can also regular summon any other monster. So you can have up to 3 monsters on the field if you play your cards right. So it goes without saying, this is invaluable, and it's going to stay in my deck as long as I have dragon decks. Tyrant Dragon, I have 2 of these. Reason why I have 2 of these is because during your battle phase, if your opponent controls a monster, after the card's first attack, this card can make a second attack. So if the monster if your opponent has 2 monsters on the field, then you can make 2 attacks with that monster. Not only that, but negate any trap effects that target this card, and if you do, destroy that trap card. This card cannot be special summoned from the graveyard unless you tribute 1 dragon type monster. That's a gift and a curse. It's a gift and a curse because basically you want, if you have a monster on the field and you're trying to level the playing field, you basically have to tribute that 1 monster you have on the field to summon this one from the graveyard, even using Call of the Haunted or anything that brings it back from the graveyard. So you want to make sure you have at least 2 monsters on the field before you make this play. But if it's the only play you have, then so be it, because it can negate trap cards like Mirror Force. Now, Vanguard of the Dragon. Now, the reason why I kept this one in is because it basically acts like a zombie or a Gravekeeper type card, because you can send any dragon type monster from your hand, and this card will gain 300 attack points. So if you send it to the graveyard, it boosts by 300. So the first time it'll be 2,000 attack points. That's good enough to wipe out any monster, at least in the beginning of the battle. But the reason why this is beneficial to my particular strategy is because I can send cards to the graveyard. If I send cards to the graveyard, I can bring those cards back using Card of the Haunted or Silver Cry. So it goes without saying that these cards are invaluable. And just moving on real quick, Azure Eyes Silver Dragon, which was in my Dragons and Nightmares deck. You basically take 1 tuner and 1 or more non-tuner normal monsters. So that's Blue Eyes and Dragon Dwelling in the Cave. And then monsters that you currently control cannot be targeted or destroyed by card effects until the end of the next turn. Once per turn during your standby phase, you can target 1 normal monster in your graveyard and special summon that target. So this deck is pretty much designed by summonings, resummonings, resurrections. Dragonic Resurrection, that's how it gets the name. Thunder End Dragon, basically if I take either a Blue Eyes that's on the field or a Tyrant Dragon, I can basically XYZ, put those 2 on here, and once per turn you can detach 1 XYZ material from this card and destroy all other monsters on the field. So this goes without saying that it's similar to Dark Hole, except that your monster will still remain on the field. It destroys your monsters and his monsters, so keep that in mind. So that's the Dragonic Resurrection. That is the recipe for this deck. Make sure you keep it locked right here on the 12Byte Network, because I have more Yu-Gi-Oh coming. Also in the next video, I will basically give you some gameplay on how this Dragonic Resurrection deck works, and then I will go on and unveil the Day of Dragons deck, which is basically the exact same deck, but just with slight modifications for multiplayer, and I'll let you know how exactly does that work online. Now with that being said, all of these are from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Original series, so any monsters that you see here primarily came from that particular series. I just went on and got into the GX, which is my second best series that I like, so you'll start to see more cards come in and you'll start to see more different decks being created. But until then, it's your boy 12, and I got you 6. Make sure you obliterate that subscribe button, you heard, man?
Need some help on creating the perfect Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck for you? Well, check out my how-to video. Or maybe you still on the fences on buying the game. Just do it, mother. Or just watch a random video